Hey, it's Jared from Strong Roots Farm. Welcome back to the channel. This is a very different video for us today. I'm glad you're here, but we're not going to do any farming stuff. We are actually in the kitchen doing some cooking. And so today I'm going to teach you how to cook a brisket. And so this is our brisket. This is our grass-fed brisket. We raised it here on this farm. And today we're going to go all the way through that. That's coming up right after this. To get started, let's do our inventory here. So it's very simple as far as the materials that you'll need. So first, you need a sharp knife. We're going to do a little bit of trimming. I'll show you how I trim the brisket. Just to show you some of the things that I use. I like this Mueller knife sharpener. So I keep my knives very, very sharp. And I buy knives from a chef store, a local restaurant supply store locally. So hopefully you can find those GFS. If you have one of those in your area, those are also a good neighborhood. And then there's only two seasonings going on our brisket today. We have a coarse ground pepper and then a coarse kosher salt. I will use mustard or mayonnaise or honey, something to put on the meat to make the seasoning stick to it, but it doesn't really do much. It's just there to keep the seasoning on the meat until it starts cooking. So let's start trimming. So this is a 100% grass-fed brisket. You'll notice the color of the fat is considerably darker or more of an orangish yellow tint. So that's how you tell the difference. So some of this fat we want to leave. I think people over trim their briskets, but we're going to start trimming some of this out. And so I'll show you what I do. First off, anything that pulls up like this here, not sure if you can see that. There's a little skin tag looking thing here. I'll trim all that off. You just don't want to get down to where you could see meat everywhere. Chunks like this little corner plate here, trim that corner completely off like that. So you can see I can go a little lower there. I got down to the red there, want a little bit of fat left, but let's trim this whole thing off the top here. Important to always take the knife away from you. So it helps if you can get a handle on it and then pull up, and then you can kind of see if you're cutting too deep or not deep enough. So I'm cutting a little bit too deep there. So that's what we're taking off. All right, so I'm gonna finish trimming this up, and then I'll show you how I prep it for our smoker, and then I'll go over all the smoker settings. We're all trimmed up now. We got all the brisket trimmings off. You can see how much fat we took off. I tend to leave more fat than the average person, but I will show you some areas that you need to be particular to on each brisket. And so basically, if you feel it, if the fat is hard, almost like a tendon or a callus, it kind of has a stiffer feel. And you'll know what I mean when you start putting your hands on a brisket. There's nice, soft, kind of oily fats, and then there's a hard kind of fat layer. That hard fat layer is what I take off. One spot on the back of the brisket is right here in this gap. There's a hard 1/4 inch layer that was left on this brisket from the butcher. So I pretty much try to take all that off until I get down to that 1/16 of an inch of fat. And from there, it's kind of soft once against the meat. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go right into our seasoning. I'll show you how I season this, how I coat this, what I do. And then when I flip it, I will show you the fatty spots on the other side. All right, so we're ready. We talked about that. We are going to season now, but I need something to cause this to stick. Traditionally, I use yellow mustard, but today I'm going to use mayonnaise. I've never actually used mayonnaise before. So what do we know about mayonnaise? It's salty. It is made from oil and eggs. It's pretty much just fat, and it has an extra salt component to it. I'm not going to reduce my salt on my seasoning, but I will know this will give it a saltier coating, and so I'll know when I'm tasting it when I'm done, if this is extra salty, this could be the reason. So traditional seasoning on my briskets is 2/3 salt, 1/3 coarse black pepper. So I'm going to start with my salt, just a liberal coating so that it coats everything. I'm noticing now the one thing the mayonnaise is inhibiting is the sight of the salt. So I can see it here, but I'm not sure how well you can see it on camera. If it's a fatty spot like that, I will extra salt it. Get all down every edge. So there's our salt, onto our black pepper. Add it all into the mayonnaise. There we go, that's side one. So I started on the back side of the brisket for a particular reason, because I want this side to be up in my smoker. This is my fatty side. And so you can see how much I've trimmed off here. Now in a restaurant, they would trim this corner off, they would trim this flap off, they would take all that off. For me, I like it. It's extra brisket. The animal raised it, I want to raise it. So I'm going to leave it on, and if it comes out drier, I'll trim it off a little later. But for me, I'm going to take my chances every time on it, and usually it turns out to be just as good as the rest of the brisket. And so we're just going to coat this side the same as we did the other side. One particular spot on a brisket to trim is right in this groove right here. So underneath this flap for me was a hard layer. Really hard fat. So you can see this is kind of a soft and oily fat. It flexes. And this is kind of a hard, denser fat. Like this here is hard and dense. So that's what we're looking to get out, is that denser fat. So we got the whole thing coated with our food lube just to hold on our salt. We're going to coat with salt and brisket, or salt and pepper again on our brisket. And then we will be ready to go to our smoker, and I'll take you out there and go over the settings and what smoker I use and what smoker you should buy and all of those things. That's coming up here in 1 second. One quick note as we remove the brisket from the counter, prior to the brisket hitting the counter and after, we are sanitizing our counter with our Thieves essential oil, I don't know, whatever this stuff is that my wife buys, voodoo Christian medicine woman stuff, but it cleans very well. So you got to have some kind of a sanitizer. Make sure you're keeping stuff clean, and that's very important. And I'm not the FDA or the Health Safety Network, but I'm pretty sure most everybody knows that. Dawn and dish soap and water will do you just fine. On to smokers. So do you have to have a specific smoker? Do you need a certain smoker to do things a certain way? Our garage is a disaster from Christmas, but we got our Green Mountain Jim Bowie smoker out. I really like this smoker. It's an auto pellet feeding smoker, so it's a cheat code from most barbecuers. It's auto programmable, so I can just program in the temperature that I want, and it goes right up there. It's beautiful. I have had this for several years now. I love this smoker. I think it's better or comparable to the Traegers. So if you have the money for a Traeger, go to your heart's content. Those things are awesome as well. But I started with a $150 Master Chef mini fridge looking smoker from Walmart. The negative with those is that you have to twist the chips in, whereas this is auto feeding. It rolls on and we are good to go. But it doesn't really matter as long as you have a smoker. But in order to increase your success, I would recommend an electric auto programmable smoker. But you could set a timer in every 30 minutes on that old Master Chef one that I had and come out and put chips in. And that's what I did. So for those, if you're going to turn the chips in, I soak my chips in water because it causes them to smoke more. For these, they're ready to go. Have our meat on the smoker. All I did was simply bring it out, throw it fat side up, throw it on there. So how long, temperatures, what are we going to do? So I've set this thing for 225. 225 for me is the magic number for everything. So if you don't know, set it to 225. 220, 225, that's kind of where I stay. If you watch online or watch some of these other chefs, they're cooking at 275. A lot of guys like to cook briskets a lot hotter. The advantage is it cooks much faster. and it gets a hardier, thicker crust on the outside. So if you like the hard, crunchy edge, you can go up a little bit in your temperature. I will still have some of that on my brisket. You will see it as it's done, but I prefer the 225. I do not like competition brisket where you can hold the whole piece up and you have to literally pull with tensile strength to get it to break apart like they do in those competitions. If I pick my brisket up, I want to shake it and it literally fall in half. I want super tender brisket. So I cook at 225. It takes a little longer, but it's a great temperature for me. My pellets, I'm using a gourmet mix. From time to time, I will mix hickory and apple, which is actually one of my friends gave me some hickory and apple, so I may end up doing that today. But in the box right now is a gourmet mix from Pit Boss. I buy it at TSC, nothing fancy. Just buy some good, Rural King has them, Lowe's has them. Just buy some pellets and you'll be good to go. So we're gonna wait now. We got about 4 to 5 hours to run on this brisket. Not looking at it, not touching it, not doing anything. Let the sucker roll. We're ready to go, 225. And so we just set it and forget it and walk away. I'll come back out, check pellets. I'll come back out, make sure the box temperature is good, glance at it a couple times. But for that, it's 4.5 hours of go and do something else. All right, well, we've let it go 5.5 hours. We kind of just watch it. I'm gonna show you, here's kind of the reveal. And so our juice is puddled up. We're definitely dark, everything's there. We got some stiffness, a lot of pepper. And so it's been cooking. It's accepted now at this point. After 4.5, 5 hours, it's accepted every bit of smoke that it's going to accept. So at this point, we are gonna wrap. What we're gonna do, I like aluminum foil. And so there's a big, controversy, foil or no foil, or do you put juice in or do you not? And this is just how I do it. And it works and it's beautiful and everybody loves it. And I never have a problem. And so I just put some liquid in, a little teeny bowl. It was probably a cup to a cup and a half. This was just our homemade chicken broth. You can use any chicken stock or beef stock at any grocery store. And I put a little dash of Worcester sauce in there just because I really like it. So I'm gonna wrap this up tight now. I just took a temperature on it and it was at 160 internally, which is good as far as safe to eat, but we want this to go up a little higher and then we'll bring it back down. And so we're gonna wrap it and that will make the temperature internally climb. It will steam it more, break down the fibers inside. And so we are ready to go. I'll wrap it, I'll show you that. And then we're gonna put it back on the smoker, but realistically, it could go in the oven now if that's what we wanted to do. So what we've done is wrapped. I wanted you to notice I went crossways first, enough to go all the way over to this side and then fold back all the way to this side. I put that foil down and then I went from front to back over top. So basically when I laid the brisket down, put the liquid in, I like setting it in this pan so the liquid stays nice. I folded all the way over and then all the way over this way, tucking it in and making that bowl for that liquid to stay in, locking it down. And then I have the sides that I wrap over and over. No liquid can come out now. It's all sealed in there. It has 4 layers of foil on the top, 2 layers on the bottom. I don't really think that matters as long as the liquid doesn't bust out. That is the important thing. So this could go in the oven, but in the hands of smoking and barbecuing and saying we did it all on the smoker, we're gonna put it back on the smoker. The smoker's already going, it's already dirty. We don't have to program the oven, all that stuff. So, but if you're going to another party, you could take this and put it in the oven until it was ready. The goal would be to get this to 205 internal temperature and then bring it down and let it rest for 2 hours. So right now we're going back to the smoker, foil wrapped, and we're gonna get it there. Put it back on the smoker. I like to put a piece of foil down first and then set my brisket right on top of that, mainly so that my foil does not get the smoker junk on it. And then when I carry it inside, the brisket wrapped in the foil is clean the entire time. When I lay it on the counter, I don't make a mess. I've learned that from mistakes. You set that foil on your counter, but the underneath had the gunk on it, you get your counter dirty. So that way it's there. The brisket cannot accept any more smoke anyways, so essentially the smoker is only acting as a slow cooker at this point. So it's keeping our temperature, it's functional, it's outside, it's keeping my house clean, but if we wanted to quit smoking, once again, you could stop doing that. There is no advantage to
putting it on the smoker other than keeping your house.
We're at the manor. This is what my wife calls my mother-in-law's house. Lots of people here. New Year's Eve, it's expected, watching the Bengals game. But we've moved the brisket. So we went ahead and pulled it off of the smoker, we were 5 miles away, threw it in their oven. I'm watching it. Last time I checked, it was at 185. So it continues to climb. We still have about 3 hours before we're planning to eat the dinner style meal. And that's what the brisket was for. So we're just gonna keep watching it. When it hits 200, 205 in that gap, I will then just shut the oven off and watch it and let it go down. When the meat gets back down to 160, I'll take it out and just wrap it in towels and let it rest for that hour. But that's what we're at. We're gonna continue to monitor it, and we will check back in when we open it up. It's a madhouse in there. So just gonna take the video out here, but I've been checking on the meat. It got to 204. We turned the oven off, left it in the oven. About 45 minutes before we're ready to eat, I will pull it out and cover it with towels. So I'm using the oven as my heat box, basically. My favorite thing to do is to take like a bath towel, wrap it in that, and put it in a cooler. And so that's what I would recommend to you, but I'm using the oven. The oven has a vent and lets heat out, but the cooler kind of holds it in there. And so that's why I prefer the cooler. But it'll be fine. It's sitting in the oven. It's cooling down. Tons of juice around it. I looked at it. As soon as it gets back down, we'll cut it, and it will be marvelous. We'll take a look at it as soon as we cut it. And there you go.
Oh, don't say that. Mom literally at attention.
Did I get the party's happening? We got it cut. Put it in saran wrap. All ready to go. All right, hand model. Show them. Mug of the hand model.